John Dickinson in the building. JD is out there at Golden One Center plenty, but he's also out covering the Warriors for 95.7 The Game. JD, thanks so much for hopping in, man. I had to cut you off. We were talking at the break about our different basketball games, and I wanted you to finish your thought. You were comparing your game to somebody. Please continue.
Yeah, I had kind of a Brad Miller game back in the day. Probably a little more mobile, like not a true five, but I was an undersized five that could shoot from the outside and wasn't afraid to mix it up. I wasn't afraid to bang. Wasn't afraid to knock somebody on the ground and mix it up. So that's kind of the JD scouting report from back in the day. It could shoot the three ball pretty well, that kind of thing. Woeful defender, much better guarding in the post, even undersized than I was guarding on the perimeter. I had to take a step back to let a lot of the quick guards, from getting by me. So I'd probably get cooked in today's game with all the pick and roll and the switching and having to defend guards. That would not be my forte. But I'd put somebody on the deck and let them know that there's a price to be paid for running by me, fellas.
I love that. Let's the Warriors have been they've gotten off to a great start here. They're 3-1, but Steph Curry's been unbelievable. 40 points in back-to-back games. Is not that he's going to average 40, obviously, but is what he's doing from a workload standpoint and carrying the Warriors offensively, is that sustainable for them all season?
Probably not. And I think that's the biggest question for them among the many questions moving forward is when Steph cools off a little bit or eventually is out of the lineup. I mean, he missed 26 games last year and he's been in the 20s the last couple of years in terms of games missed. It's both, do they have secondary scoring consistently on nights where he's just average or even, struggles. He struggled shooting the ball on opening night against the Suns, and the Warriors didn't really have anybody else that was able to step up and help fill the void. And they wind up losing that game to the Suns as their one loss. So do they have the secondary scoring when he's normal is a question. How do they deal with any time that he has to miss, I think is another big question, because as much as Chris Paul has worked to this point, and he really has worked out with leading the bench unit, and he was starting when Draymond Green was out. Jordan Poole, as maligned a player as he was, scored a lot of points when Steph Curry didn't play and started in Steph Curry's spot. And the Warriors were a little fortunate last year with the schedule that they had a lot of home games. They were excellent at home last year. They had a lot of home games when Steph was out. And in a lot of those games, Jordan Poole cooked. And they were able to win a lot of those games, which ultimately was the reason that they had enough to avoid the play-in tournament and get to the 6th seed with a little bit of a hot finish and 44 wins. So I think the Warriors love James, the way things have worked out to this point. There have been a few little injuries here and there, but I think the big question, as much as they like their depth, is, what happens if you start taking key cogs away for lengthy periods of time, and how does that stand up?
Yeah, the Warriors did play yesterday. Well, not yesterday.
2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days ago, without Klay Thompson, without Jonathan Kaminga. What is the latest on those guys? And it does look like Klay will probably play, but what is the latest on those two?
Yeah, I think Klay's in. I would imagine for tonight. I think that was a little bit more precautionary on the back-to-back with a little bit of knee soreness. I've said it here in the Bay. I would never play Klay Thompson in the second of a back-to-back or in both ends of a back-to-back really ever again. Now, if me saying that, Klay Thompson probably, here, if he heard it, would throw something across his living room and thinking that, like, he wants to be out there. He doesn't want to be a limited player at this point, even in his career, given the 2 injuries that he's had. So I think they have to protect him from himself. He said at shoot around in Sacramento, interestingly enough, on Friday before the Warriors and Kings played last, he wants to play 70-plus games this season. And, that means you're going to be, as he did last year, not sitting out every single back-to-back if you're going to get to 70. So I think the Warriors have to protect him from himself. I would expect him to be back tonight. Kaminga is a young player. he's obviously, dealing with a little something. That's a more legitimate injury. I think they're trying to be careful with, because he is a minutes soaker for this team. I mean, he really is somebody that has his 20 minutes, I think, carved in right now in a normal rotation, but he's somebody that figures when other players are out to, get more minutes and use that as an opportunity to grow his development. So I think they're right now dealing with something legitimate with him, although still day to day, but want to be careful that he's not somebody that ends up having to miss multiple weeks, because that could really hurt him if they wind up with some other injuries.
Talking with John Dickinson from 95.7 The Game here. How much of Golden State's success this season rides on Jonathan Kaminga and also Moses Moody?
I don't think it's as much as some may say. I think if those two are solid and everything else clicks, I think that's good enough. I mean, Kaminga hasn't been spectacular to this point. Moody has been real steady, an extension of his playoff self. And the funny thing about Moses Moody is he had been, in his first 2 seasons, a much better playoff player than he had been a regular season player. He really hurt Sacramento, as you guys know, in the playoff series, as somebody that Steve Kerr really wasn't intending on playing. And then basically when Jonathan Kaminga became unplayable based on the way that the Warriors, or the Kings rather, were attacking him, Kerr just kind of went to Moses Moody in game 2, like, yeah, you know what? Look, I'm just going to throw him out there and see what he's got. And he ended up playing well and being a player that helped Sacramento win that series. He's extended that. He played some 2 years ago in the playoffs and then got an opportunity early last year. Didn't play well. A lot of turnovers, a lot of fouling. The big thing for me is missed open threes. Moody, if he can make open threes, he's a really useful player. And he did that against the Kings in the playoffs. He did it 2 years ago against Dallas in the playoffs when he got an opportunity in the conference finals. And then he wouldn't do it in the regular season coming back. But he's done that to this point in the first week. So I think they're really high on Moody. I think Kaminga, there's always going to be the grappling between the player that he wants to be. I think he views himself as a future all-star type player. And I think while the Warriors may not disagree, I think there's a constant pull between the team and the coaching staff and Kaminga on, hey, dude, we want you to run the floor and be energetic and defend and do all the little things and fit your game into a box that complements the rest of these pieces. If you do that, we think we can be a championship contender, and then you can continue to develop over the next couple of years into that all-star player. It's almost as if Kaminga wants it all a little too quickly, and I think at times that's led to him making a lot of mistakes that don't allow him to fit into a team that has the playoff aspirations that this Warriors team does. But so far, so good. He has been rebounding. The offensive game's been a little more erratic. But to me, it's about steadiness more than the third-year leap that I think you hear a lot about coming out of the Bay Area from the outside.
All right, you're listening to the Insiders here on ESPN 1320. We are joined by John Dickinson from 95.7 The Game, talking a little Warriors hoops. With the Kings and Warriors playing for like the 47th time out of 50 games tonight.
Too much.
It is too much.
So
man.
many games.
It's so much.
Save these for March. Save these for February, fellas.
It's horrible.
That's what I'm saying.
Horrible. I don't know who made this schedule. John, when you look at De'Aaron Fox is going to miss at least this game and probably another couple of games here for the Sacramento Kings with an ankle injury. How much does that change what the Warriors are going to do? How much does that change the battle between these two teams?
I'm really interested to see how it all shakes out tonight, because the Kings have a really talented, deep team, aside from De'Aaron Fox. And the Warriors, I think, as the playoff series went on in April, started to figure out, and I think it was part of the game plan from the beginning, but I think they started to figure out that their best course of action to beat Sacramento is to make life as difficult as possible on Domantas Sabonis and take his impact to the best of their ability to involve other players in the offense away and make life difficult on everybody else. And I think the Warriors acknowledged that De'Aaron Fox is a really difficult matchup for them specifically. He's a difficult matchup for everybody in the league, but for them specifically, he's just a nightmare. Everything that De'Aaron Fox does well is just compounded by the Warriors' defensive weaknesses and matchups. So I think the Warriors at some point said, Fox is just going to get 30 to 40. And if we can limit the times in which he takes the game over, if we can have a little bit of a lead before he starts going off, like the game on Friday night, the Warriors had built a nice cushion. It's win the other parts of the game and try to limit those spurts where all of a sudden he has 14 to 16 points in a very short period of time and turns a game that's in control into a nail biter, as he's done a lot. That being said, I think it for tonight, with the Warriors coming off the road trip and coming back home, and the Kings having, a lot of talent, like the Kings have the ability to spread it around and have a lot of different players that can score. And so I wonder if tonight, one night only, in a weird way, the Kings benefit from the fact that the Warriors have spent so much of their attention on just kind of letting Fox do his thing and taking everybody else away. I think the game plan for the Kings might be a little bit different and more balanced and in some ways maybe a more difficult cover for the Warriors, who, there may be a little let up for them tonight too, thinking, oh, Fox, this guy's just smoked us. Like, we got this one. And that's, the one thing that you can't obviously do if you're any team playing the Kings, but for the Warriors, it has been make life really difficult on Sabonis. And even in the games where you could look up at the end of the night, like Friday, and say he got his numbers, whether the missed layups, the physical play, they eliminated Herter in the game the other night, who I know has been struggling. To me, it's take the others away. And, I think they'll try to, Malik Monk will be somebody that'll really have the Warriors' attention, I think, tonight, as a guy that naturally would want to step in and score 40. He of course, along with Fox, won the Kings, multiple games in the playoff series. So I wouldn't sleep on Sacramento tonight in Chase Center with the Warriors coming off that trip and maybe a little bit of a letdown with Fox not playing.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think I'm right there. I want to get you out of here on this. I know you do a ton of stuff covering the Niners too. What are your thoughts on the Chase Young trade?
Love it. No brainer. I know he's been a little bit of an underwhelming player just based on injury. And there was the reporting from Mike Silver, talking to some people in Washington about his attitude and things like that. I don't see that kind of stuff. Well, I trust that the reporting is accurate, and that is Washington's opinion of him. I'm not disputing that at all. I do think that's something that the 49ers with Chris Kuceric and the rest of the players on that defense can work through and get the most out of Chase Young. I think they had to go get a pass rusher. I think when you look at the compensation component to where they got him for Rand Carthon, essentially going to be the GM, and they're going to get the comp pick back. And you could make the case they got him for free if you really wanted to extrapolate it out. So to me, it's a no-brainer. They needed a pass rusher. I think they also needed a corner, but their bet is that they can add more pass rush, and that helps the corners. The trickle down effect helps the corners. So does it get Bosa going? I think they're hoping that it gets Bosa going. Bosa's had a lot of pressure that he just hasn't quite been able to get home. The guys on the other side have just not done enough. The Drake Jacksons, the Cleveland Ferrells. So to me, when you're bringing in somebody that's as blue chip a talent as Chase Young on a defense that's looking for an infusion, I think it's a no-brainer. I think he helps them, and I think the Niners needed to do something. The defense went from all-time great to, are they going to fire the DC in like 14 days? I don't know that I've seen anything like it, but I do think Chase Young will be able to help this 49ers defense as they recalibrate for the second half.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. JD, thank you so much for hopping on. Thanks for taking time out of your day to do this. The Warriors and Kings play again in like 3 weeks. We'll do it again.
looking forward to it. Yeah.
All right, buddy.
Good to see you guys. Take
See
care.
you later tonight.
See you, JD.